Hey and welcome. If you're a parent navigating the special education system, you know it can feel overwhelming, right? Like you're trying to learn a whole new language while the stakes couldn't be higher. Well, today we're going to change that. We're diving into a guide that's all about turning that confusion into real confidence, so you can become your child's most effective advocate.
So let's just jump right in with a single, pretty shocking number, 95%. I want you to just look at that for a second. 95%. What on earth could that mean? In a system that's supposed to help every single child succeed, a number like this is a massive wake-up call.
And there it is. According to educator Sean D. Taylor, a staggering 95% of students in special education might not be getting the push they need to reach their true potential. Now look, this isn't about pointing fingers. It's about a gap in the system. And this whole explainer, it's about giving you, the parent, the power to close that gap for your child.
So, how do we even begin to tackle this 95% problem? Well, it starts by understanding the roadmap. This whole journey through the special education process, the IEP world, it can feel like you're lost in a maze. But once you can actually see the key checkpoints, that's when you can start asking the right questions.
And here is that roadmap. See, the Individualized Education Program, or IEP, isn't just one meeting. It's a whole life cycle. It kicks off with an initial evaluation, which leads to an eligibility meeting to see if your child qualifies. From there, the actual plan gets developed. And then you're in a cycle. You've got annual reviews every year and a big reevaluation every 3 years called the triennial. Knowing these stages is everything, because you need to know what to push for at each and every step.
So let's talk about the framework that's going to help you do that. It's a really simple, but I'm telling you, incredibly powerful acronym, MECE. You can just call it MECE. Think of this as your new secret weapon. It's the analytical lens you can use to look at every single document, every progress report, and every meeting you walk into.
We call it the MEC full stack analysis. All that really means is that it gives you a consistent, step-by-step way to look at your child's entire program. This is what moves you from feeling like you're always one step behind to being proactive, making sure every piece of the puzzle is actually working toward your child's success.
So what does MSC actually stand for? Let's break it down. M is for measure. You have to ask, what specific tools are you using to measure my child's progress? E is for evaluate. Are those the right tools? Are they valid for my kid? C is for change, and this one is so important. What's the plan if my child isn't making progress? What's the trigger to change things up? And finally, the second E, expect. We have to maintain high expectations. Is this program aiming for grade-level work? This 4-step process? This is your new advocacy mantra.
All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty. Before you even set foot in that IEP meeting, there are things you can do that will change the entire dynamic. This is how you go from just being a participant in the room to being a prepared, powerful partner at the table.
And this right here, this is your absolute power move. You have a legal right under federal law, the IDEA, to get a copy of all reports and the draft IEP before the meeting. I'd ask for it at least 5 days in advance. Seriously, this is non-negotiable. It gives you the time you need to read it, digest it, and come up with your questions, instead of being handed a 30-page document and expected to understand it on the spot.
Now, when you get that draft, you might wonder where to even start. The IEP has a lot of parts, but there is one section that holds the whole thing together. Any guesses? It's called the PLAF, which is a mouthful, I know. It stands for Present Levels of Academic Achievement and Functional Performance. Just think of it as the foundation of a house. Every single goal in that IEP has to be built on the data in this one section. If this foundation is weak, the whole plan will fall apart. So you have to dig into that PLAF. You're looking for the gold standard, not red flags. Vague statements like, student struggles with reading, that's a red flag. It's totally unacceptable. You want to see specific, current data, like actual standardized scores. And critically, you need to make sure your parent concerns are written right there in that section.
Okay, once you've got a solid PAFF, you can start looking at the goals. And for every single goal they propose, I want you to have these 3 questions ready to go. Write them down. The answers are going to tell you everything you need to know. And that third question is the real gut check. If my child masters this goal, will they be caught up? Is this goal ambitious enough to actually close the academic gap?
Which leads us straight into our next section. Because goals are totally meaningless if you don't have good data to track them. Your child's progress should never be a mystery. It shouldn't be based on just a teacher's opinion or some vague comment on a report card. You have the right to demand objective, real data, and you should be getting it often. And I mean, look at the night and day difference here. A report that says student is progressing, that tells you absolutely nothing. But seeing a graph with a goal line, or seeing that your child's reading fluency grew from 45 to 58 words correct per minute, or WCPM, that gives you real actionable information. This is the level of detail you should expect.
The tool that gives you this kind of high-quality data is often called curriculum-based measurement, or CBM. You need to know this term. It's widely considered the gold standard for tracking progress. These are just brief, often weekly, little check-ins that create a super clear picture of whether or not an intervention is actually working. You can, and you should, ask for it by name.
So what does good data actually look like in practice? Well, here's your checklist. First, it should be happening frequently, like weekly probes. Second, that data has to be graphed with a goal line, an aim line, so you can visually track their trajectory. And third, and this is the most important part, there has to be a rule. If your child's data falls below that aim line for, say, 3 weeks in a row, it needs to automatically trigger a team meeting to change the instruction. Because what's the point of collecting data if you don't use it to make decisions?
And that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle. It's the most powerful tool you have, and it shapes every question you ask and every decision you make. And that's your mindset. The research on this is crystal clear. Parent and teacher expectations are one of the single strongest predictors of how well a student will do.
The language we all use really, really matters. When we shift our thinking from, well, let's just get him through the grade, to what does he need to be promoted with mastery, it fundamentally changes the entire conversation. High expectations, when they're paired with the right, data-driven supports, that's what creates breakthroughs.
Because it all comes down to this. No one, not a single teacher, principal, or therapist, will ever care as deeply or fight as hard for your child's future as you will. That love, that's your superpower. When you combine that superpower with the knowledge and the frameworks we've talked about today, you can absolutely change that 95% statistic one child at a time. The future your child deserves is waiting.